you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today it's going to be the update to the easysorc. This is the Magicka Sorcerer build for the Scalebreaker DLC. Now there's been a lot of combat changes for a lot of different classes and sets and all that good stuff, but don't worry, I've got you covered. The easysorc obviously was anticipated to be somewhat nerfed, but it has not been. In fact, it's a little bit stronger than it was before, regardless of the reduction to AoE damage. Now just to note, by the way, this is a build for all content. It's across the board balanced build. It supplies bonuses, buffs and debuffs to your group. It has resistance for itself, healing for itself, self buffs, cheap resource management as well in the form of potions. You don't have to use the expensive stuff. It's easy to acquire in most cases, and of course this is focused on good single target, not the highest, but very high AoE. So it's a balanced build across the board. If you're confused by that, listen to that statement again before you put that comment in the section below saying I can get higher on a dummy. Nobody cares. Now I'm going to go over everything in detail, but first of all we're going to go into the stats, of course. So we are sitting on 40.4k max Magicka, 18k max health, which is huge. Just minor toughness and ebb and added to that will put you over 20k in trials. 10k max stamina, and we're on 914 Magicka recovery. We have 3k max spell damage, which does go up, and we've got bonuses that don't show in our stats. And we've got 53.6% crit. That actually goes up if we apply our own bonuses from our passives, which actually puts us at 59.6. So almost 60% crit there. Now, we are on 64 points max Magicka, so that's where all our attributes are. We don't need any into health or any into stamina because we've got enough to cover for both. And we're using max health, max magic food. The cheap blue flat stuff, very easy to acquire or buy or make or whichever. It's very easy to get. And we're using the Shadow Munderstone for a 19% increase to crit damage. Now, that was slightly different before. We had 16%, but that's because of certain traits. But we will get to those, don't worry. And we are, of course, a stage 4 vampire. Don't worry about vampire, by the way. We do have some very important passive. That's why we're a vampire. But if you want to go stage 3, of course, you can. But stage 4 is just fine. In all content, you will not struggle as long as you know what to do. And what I mean by that is don't stand in fire on purpose. And make sure you keep your resistance buffs up. And you should be just fine. We've used it in all content so far, and it has not struggled. But again, if you do not want to use vampire, that is entirely up to you. Anyway, now we're going to go into the skills. Now, previously, this was very straightforward, and it is going to be that to some extent, but there are some swap outs depending on situations, because this recent update has opened up a massive can of worms to allow you to alter your build depending on what content you're in to a little bit more of an open plane to what it was before. So before, maybe you'll swap out one skill or something, or maybe you'll swap out one weapon or a trait. There's a lot more choices because of the way that they've affected skills, especially AoE. So we're going to go into that as well, so don't panic, I will explain it all. First of all, structured entropy. Now, this was not in our build before, but now it is. Because before, in Stormcalling, we would take advantage of crit surge. This has been altered. This no longer gives you heals based on critical damage. This instead allows you to heal people based on critical heal. So we're not using this skill anymore. You could use the Power Surge one instead and just use spell pots to increase your spell damage if you preferred, and still get the heal from it. That is a choice you can make if you want to use it. But instead, we're not using that anymore. Instead, we're using Structured Entropy. Now, this comes from the Mage's Guild skill line. Second ability you unlock, called Structured Entropy, starts off as Entropy, by the way. This will do damage over time for 12 seconds. It's magic damage, by the way. Magic is kind of like an element, like lightning, fire, and frost is. Magic is also a damage type, so be very aware of that. It's very powerful, and every 2 seconds it will heal you, and it will give you major sorcery as well. So this will increase your spell damage by 20% for 24 seconds. This is going to be on our rotation every single time we go to the front bar, so this is never ever going to run out. So we've got constant heals, constant damage boost just like before, although a little bit less of a heal, and we've got now an additional damage over time, which is really handy. It's only single target, however, so you do have to make sure you pick the target you want to put it on. You can put it on multiples if you wish, so you don't have to put it on just one, you can put it on 2 at a time, but you will get the heal, of course, based on the damage every 2 seconds. So all you need to do is apply it. The duration of the dot lasts 12 seconds, the spell damage bonus lasts 24, so this will still stay with us. Now, just to note, by the way, this here will heal you for that target. Every 2 seconds. This, and this, and this, and this. Lots of heals. Very, very shiny. Each dot will give you a heal, so pay very close attention to that, just in case you're in trouble. Anyway, we're going to keep that on the main target at all times. Next up is Daedric Tomb. This is in our Dark Magic skill line. It's the 5th ability you unlock, so you may want to slot some of these while you're leveling, or maybe even put on Suppression Field on your front bar while leveling. And you want to unlock Daedric Mines and morph it to Daedric Tomb. Now this is, of course, a flex slot as well. What you can do is basically you just put this on the ground, very simple. Anything caught in this, in any of these mines, will blow up, be immobilized on the spot so they can't move, and take massive damage. Fully trial buffed, way over 50k a hit if you crit it. But this can also cover more than one pot per target depending on the size of them, because they cover a certain amount of real estate. Now these can't count as AoE as such, they do count as direct or single target damage, but you can hit a target with multiple. So if you hit him, you'll see 2 fire at the same time. Not all 3, you won't get all 3, it's very unlikely that you'll do that, but you can get 2 at a time. Same goes for the smaller targets as well. Now, that does make a big difference in combat, because that makes a difference between increasing your overall DPS for that period of time while that's running, between 20 and 40k extra damage for that second that it pops, or nothing at all. So you got to be really careful where you place them. Don't just put them anywhere. However, you can put them on the ground and preempt that something's going to run into it, and it will pop when they get there and immobilize them. So you can use it as a kind of CC in a fight as well, just to give you a head start. There's lots of different ways to get used to that skill, lots of different ways to practice it, but essentially it lays on the ground for 30 seconds. Anything that stands in it pops. Now, you can swap this if you prefer to... Now, this isn't really a spammable, but it does move across the ground. Mystic Orb. Now, this is in the Undaunted skill line. Now, you will need Undaunted 5 to get this. Starts off as Necrotic Orb, morph it to Mystic Orb. Now, what this does is this makes a bubble come out. You can only use one at a time, and it will do damage every half a second to all enemies caught inside of the area of effect. And your teammates can take a synergy from this and get back almost 4k Magicka or stamina, depending on which one of the pools is higher for them. But because it moves over time, it may go past the target. Now, we don't want to spam it, but we don't want it to run past the boss and not hit it. So what you can do is, instead of using mines every rotation twice, you can use this every rotation twice. So when it goes out of range, you reapply another one. Now, that, when it gets the rotation, will make a lot more sense, but this is a choice, and you can swap it out if you choose to. Also, AoE caps were removed, so watch this. Oh dear, oh dear. Every single target gets hit. So you have 2 choices. You've got your spammable mines, which is part of your rotation, or you can put that on the front bar instead. The damage output overall on single target is actually very, very close, regardless of one being direct damage and one being damage over time. But in area of effect situations, that is insane. So again, the choice is yours for those 2 swap outs. Next up is Hardened Ward. This is in our Daedric Summoning skill line. Starts off as Conjured Ward, morph it to Hardened Ward. Now what this does is it gives you a damage shield, as you can see, coats your health with a nice purple aura, and all of that there, the percentage of your health bar is covered, and you take damage in the shield before your health. Now resistances are considered, so make sure you keep your resistance buff up, so that you take less damage in the shield, so it lasts actually longer. Now, this is capped at 60% of your maximum health. So you'll see there we've got a 10.8k damage shield, which will be a maximum of 60% of our health. But if we get more health and this goes up, we get a bigger shield. So this is based off max magic in terms of its strength, but it caps at 60. So if we have minor toughness and we have ebon and all that good stuff and our health goes up, as long as we don't stay under 60% in terms of its strength from the magic pool, we can always have a bigger shield in trials. So this is very, very nice. This can actually top out to about 12k. Next up is Bound Aegis. This is also in our Daedric Summoning skill line. It starts off as Bound Armor, morph it to Bound Aegis. This, for being on your bar, will grant you 8% increase maximum magic, just for being there. And it will give you Minor Ward and Minor Resolve as well, increasing your spell resistance and physical resistance by 1320. Now this can be acquired obviously by Combat Prayer and a couple other bonuses, but this is on us 100% of the time, and you'll see that I've double barred it as well. So it's on our back bar on the first ability, and it's on our front bar there as well. You don't have to activate this, but if you do activate it for 3 seconds while blocking, you will mitigate a further 36% of damage. So all you have to do is hold block, and if you don't want to get hit as hard, pop this, and you will take a massive mitigation bonus to whatever's going to hit you in the face. It's really, really strong. Don't spam it, just use it if you need to. Apart from that, leave it on your bar. Now, next up is Mage's Wrath. This is our main execute, of course. This is in Stormcalling. First ability to unlock. Morph it into Mage's Wrath from Mage's Fury. Now, what this does is when the target is below 20% health, you will do shock damage, and then you'll do additional burst in area of effect. Now, If the target is just about to reach 20%, you can put it on early because there's a 4-second delay. It doesn't take 4 seconds to cast. It will cast instantly if they're below 20%, but if they're above 20%, it will stay on the target for 4 seconds, and if they dip below 20% while this is active, then it will pop. So you can kind of preempt it. So you see on this target here, it's on him now. You can see the buffs above his head. You can see the one that looks exactly the same as the skill. 3, 2, 1, 0, and then it will pop. As you can see, it doesn't pop there because his health is too high. But if he was 20% or lower, that would have gone off. If he was lower than 20, flat out, before I fire it, it will just pop instantly. But that's your main execute. So during your rotation, instead of using these at your execute, you will be using these. So the mines go away at execute. But that will be explained in the rotation. Our ultimate on our front bar is not actually used for damage as such. We don't fire this unless it is an emergency. So by that I mean we don't have enough for our back bar ultimate and the target's almost dead. So we don't use this for anything other than passives. This is Ice Comet. It is in the Mage's Guild skill line. You need Mage's Guild 10 for this. Starts off as Meteor, morph it to Ice Comet, or Shooting Star. The choice is yours. We don't use this for anything except for emergencies and passives. Passives I will get over shortly. Don't worry about that too much for now. Just leave it where it is. Failing that, if you do want an active ultimate, you can of course put your Storm Atronach on the front bar, which is actually quite a nice ultimate over time if you use if you're in a single target damage fight and you want to stay on the spot and kind of buff your group as well. Failing that, you can also put on Suppression Field. Now the differences between the two, I'll show you where they come from, is that Suppression Field from Dark Magic starts off as Negate Magic, by the way. You'll normally hear me refer to it as Negate Bubble. This puts down a bubble on the ground, and everything caught inside of this will be stunned for 12 seconds, which is absolutely insane. Every half a second, it will do magic damage over time to every target caught inside. So this is an oh shit button. You can put this on your bar if you want it instead, while you're leveling Mage's Guild, or just if you preference it. In Daedric Summoning, you have Summon Storm Atronach, morph it to Charged Atronach, and this will do an Area of Effect attack, plus lots of single target lightning damage as well. But if your allies are standing nearby and they take a synergy from this, they'll get major berserk increase in their damage done by 25% for 8 seconds. So you've got two choices there. You can go with the Mage's Guild stuff, or you can go with your Sorcerer stuff. Depends on what you want to do at the time. Overall, we use our back bar ultimate, which is our Death Royalty, which I'll explain when I get to the back bar in a moment. But you can choose to double bar Storm Atro or back bar Storm Atro if you want. It's up to you. The difference is, of course, Area of Effect. The Death Royalty does a lot more. Single target. The Atronach is nice and it gives your group a buff, but it doesn't necessarily outperform. The buff is what you really want it for if you're speccing that way. The choice is yours, however, like I said. Back bar. Bound Aegis, like I said already, is on the front and is on the back because we want 8% increased max magic and minor resolve and minor ward on both bars. So don't touch them, just leave them there. Next up, of course, is Blockade of Storms. This is absolutely essential to the build. Do not hit anything if it doesn't have this wall down. It's in the Destruction Staff skill line. It's called Elemental Blockade, morphed from Wall of Elements. So if I ever say Wall of Elements, I generally mean this skill. Now, as you can see here, it does magic damage and it's got loads of different effects. This is different depending on what staff you are holding. So we're holding a Lightning Staff, so as you can see, it's called Blockade of Storms, and the visual changes as well. This is really, really simple. Big Wall of Elements on the ground. Anything caught inside of here will take shock damage every second. Now how this is applied is very simple. Wall of Elements on the ground. Anything caught inside of this, wrong bar, anything caught inside of this will take lightning damage every 1 second. Now this got somewhat buffed in this patch in terms of its duration. It used to last 8 seconds and it now lasts 12. Now the other morph of this, which explodes after a short period of time with a shorter range and higher damage output, did perform very well. But because its duration is that much shorter, based on the way that we're set up with our gear and everything, the fall off actually reduced our overall damage. So this actually outperformed based on our particular setup. So keep with Blockade of Storms, not Unstable Wall of Elements. This is also very, very important to the overall build because off balance got increased as well. It used to last 5 seconds, now it lasts 7. Now if you are unfamiliar with off balance, I'm going to explain this very simply for you. If a target is off balance and you heavy attack it, you will do 70% extra damage to your heavy attack, and you will gain back double the resources you would normally gain from a standard heavy attack. So double resources, 70% increase to damage. How this is triggered with this particular build is that the shock wall of elements can cause concussion. Concussion is a lightning status effect based on chance. Now, if it is concussed, if any targets are concussed, The Wall of Elements itself, this particular version of it, the Lightning version of it, will force it to go off balance. So if anyone's got points into the same tree as the Exploiter passive, and they have 75 points in that tree in the Champion point system, then they will get 10% increased damage overall, as will you, because we do have them there. If anyone heavy attacks, they will get increased damage, and if anyone heavy attacks, they will get increased return. So you do want to keep off balance up as much as possible. Now, off balance has a 7-second uptime and a 15-second downtime. So we have a very large window of opportunity to take back that double resources bonus and do extra damage with our heavies. Now, that is essential for us, and I will explain it when we get to the passives. But it's as easy as this. We need to concuss something. All you have to do is put down your wall and keep the target in there. If the lightning damage from the wall procs concussion, this will guaranteed knock it off balance. Obviously, concussion is a chance, but we have a bonus to that in our passives, and you'll see that we do quite a lot of lightning damage, so we increase our chances of this happening. Now, next up is, of course, Boundless Storms, another lightning ability. Now, this is in the Stormcalling skill line. It's the second ability you unlock. Starts off as Lightning form, morph it to Boundless Storms. Now, this will give you a resistance buff, giving you Major Ward and Major Resolve, and this will increase both physical and spell resistance by 5280. Now, this is quite a long duration as well. It lasts for 23 seconds. And every second that this is active, not only will you get the resistance bonus, but you will also do damage in area of effect every 1 second. It's really, really good. And of course, as we already mentioned, there is no AoE cap anymore. So, everything gets zapped. Absolutely mental. And, as you can see, that is lightning damage. And that stacked alongside our Wall of Elements is extra chance for concussion, which means more off balance. Next up, keep that up all the time, by the way. Very, very simple. Don't let it run out. Next up is a flex slot. This I don't always use. I use it for single target fights where I don't have a healer in there with Twilight, or where I don't have someone giving me guard. The reason being is because the set Twilight, if you take a synergy from that person casting that particular skill from that set, whether it be a spear, a purifier, whatever synergy they have, if you take a synergy from them, you will be granted minor force. If you have guard on you and they have the particular morph, that will give you minor force. So you don't have to have Beast Trap on. You can fit into your group and see what they do and don't have that will benefit you to give you the minor force. We've never had minor force on the Easy Sorc before, except for the first ever version of it. So we've never really suffered with it, and we still don't, but we can get it other ways. However, if you don't have it available, of course you can slot Beast Trap. Now this was also changed. This is in the Fighters Guild skill line. Starts off as Trap Beast, and it's now been called and changed to Barbed Trap. If you put this on the ground, this will trap your target and immobilize it, unless it's a boss, in which case it can't be immobilized. And for the whole duration that is active, you will have minor force, increasing your crit damage done by 10%. This does physical damage over time, so we're not spec'd for physical, but we do have a little bit in our passive, so this isn't actually too bad. This actually gives us about 1k DPS overall, but what we really want it for is the minor force. Now, this does cost stamina, but because it's such a long duration now, doesn't really affect us. It doesn't make us run out of juice. It's very, very nice indeed. Now, here are the options. If you want to, and you don't want to use a stamina ability, because of course, with this being stamina, this makes our sustain go up, because we're not using a magic ability to apply it. If you prefer, you can, of course, go to Sigic Order, and you can get Channeled Acceleration. It will alter your rotation a little bit. It will last for quite a long time, actually, 36 seconds, and it will give you an open chance to have your damage shield bonus on your back bar from this particular skill line. So if you block, you get the damage shield. But just consider, of course, if you do that, this will not give you the physical damage over time. It's a small amount, but you will lose damage for using a different version of Minor Force. However, as already mentioned, you can get Minor Force from someone else. If your group is set up this way, and you have a healer using Twilight, or you have a tank giving you guard, and you've already agreed that that's a thing, you can get rid of this. And you can replace it with this. Splitting Soul Trap, or Soul Splitting Trap, whichever way you want to call it. Now this is very easy to acquire. This is from the main story, and you unlock it at the very beginning of the game, actually. So you don't even need to do the story to unlock this, but you will need to for any passives. This is called Soul Trap, and you want to take the Soul Splitting Trap morph. Yes, the other single target version of this does more single target damage. It does damage over time for 10 seconds, which is really, really high, and you get resources back if the target dies. This one, however, is slightly less in terms of its overall DPS output, single target, but it counts towards every target around you within 8 meters. So if you aim at something up to 28 meters away from you, within an 8-meter radius, every single target near it will also receive a damage over time effect on them. And it's ridiculously strong. Now, what did I tell you before about AoE being non-capped? Do you want the single target damage over time for about 22k, excluding crits? Or do you want the AoE one, where every single one of them takes 17k? That is friggin' nuts. I told you we're built for AoE, and we are. Now, that is your choice. I personally preference this over Beast Trap because it's only a minor bonus. Although it does increase our overall damage output, we never had it before, and I will quite happily take a Twilight synergy off of a healer, or I'll take Guard off of a tank, and I can still fit everything and have Minor Force. But the choice is yours. I personally would preference this, but you do want to kind of get that buff if you can. The next one, of course, is Liquid Lightning. Then we're going to show you how nuts the AoE is. This is in our Stormcalling skill line. It's the third ability you unlock. Lightning Splash is its original version. You want to morph it into Liquid Lightning. Now, this got buffed duration-wise as well. This used to last 10 seconds. It now lasts 12. So this lines up perfectly with our Wall of Elements. And as you can see, that and that go together. More lightning damage, more concussion, more off balance. And when we're on our back bar now, doing our rotation, these are still running. So while we are reapplying them, they're just about to run out. We can just about reapply them, which I'll explain later in the rotation. Before, there used to be a gap, which meant we'd have ticking damage missing. Now, there's almost no gap at all, if one whatsoever. It's very, very nice having those increased durations. Yes, I did try Liquid Flood, Lightning Flood even. Yes, it does do more damage flat out, but the duration was only 8 seconds, so with a full rotation, we found that there was anywhere between 2 and 4 second downtime sometimes, which meant you lost a lot of extra damage. Having the lower damage version up for a longer period of time actually outperformed. So this was really, really nice. I would highly recommend getting this version. Now I'm going to show you the Destro ulti before we go any further. The Destruction Staff ulti, obviously you need level 50 Destruction Staff skill line to get this. Once you've got it, get Elemental Storm and morph it to Elemental Rage. This will give us a Lightning version because we're using a Lightning Staff. If you're using a Flame Staff, you'll get a Flame version. The Flame version does more damage over time. This lasts 2 seconds longer. But again, it's lightning damage. In area of effect, it's absolutely devastating, and it can cause more concussion and more off balance uptime. So these all combined, lightning damage here, 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 and our staff, of course, can all contribute to buffing your group's overall damage and sustain. Now, you want to use this as much as possible. Don't use your front one, use your back one. But like I said earlier, if you do want to swap out for the Storm Atronach on both bars, or just one bar with a Mage's Guild on the front, thank you, Captain Jack, then of course you can. It's entirely up to you. But just consider, of course, this is more for single target fights where you want to get your group having these little nice buffs and stuff, or this is for massive, massive AoE and single target combined. Up to you. But we're now going to show you what sort of AoE to expect. None of these are debuffed. I'm going to show you kind of what to expect in terms of all the crazy numbers going off when you are in an AoE situation. Daedric Tomb is our main spammable. I would highly recommend not swapping it out for anything else, but if you do, I have already noted that you can, of course, use Mystic Orb, which will help your group and do area of effect damage over time. So we'll just introduce that in there as well. So what we'll do is we'll put all of our shinies on, and then we'll put some dots down. And as you can see, that is fucking crazy. And all you have to do is keep your dots up while making sure you keep your buffs, bonuses, and heavy attacks up on the main target. I will show the rotation, of course, but we now need to go over the passives and see why all this damage is so crazy. Now, again, I haven't mentioned at the very beginning, this has very good or reasonable single target damage, but it's not the highest you'll get out of other setups. Of course, others can do a lot more. But the whole design of it is to be able to have resistances, survivability, damage output, sustain, buff your group, and do a combination of both single target and massive AoE. AoE is less than it was before, but because of all the cap removal and all the AoE that we have, ours is actually higher than it's ever been. So it's insane. Every fight, almost every single fight, has ads to deal with. And some of the harder ones, most people die to the ads because they can't kill them quick enough. Before, sure, people were getting free AoE. and maybe they had a little bit more than they should have done on single target smash and builds. Now with a reduction to that, maybe it's more helpful for people who are spec'd for AoE to have them come in, drop their single target a little bit, and have a bit more AoE to deal with them. That was the original design for the entire build the whole time, but it's even more relevant than it ever was. So this is really, really fun, and you can kill stuff really, really fast. And not to mention, of course, we have so much burst damage, especially when off-balance kicks in. Over long-durated fights, sure, we do well, but in quick fights, when ads come in and all that good stuff, we can burn them rapidly. It's really, really nice indeed. If you check the combat metrics, by the way, if anyone's using that on PC, there is a new update for that. Well, it's recent, it's not that new. And you can see your spikes in DPS. And on a single target, sometimes the spikes for this particular build can go up to anywhere as far as 187k DPS in short periods of time just through burst moments. It's really, really nuts. Anyway, we're going to go over the passives, and it's going to start making a lot more sense. So, Dark Magic. This one reduces the health, magic, and stamina cost of your abilities by 6%. Reduction to cost, we need it. When you hit an enemy with a direct applied Dark Magic ability, you heal for 1809. Now, this obviously scales off of your max health, so the higher your health, the better. We have high health, so that's fine, but this is a Dark Magic ability. It does direct damage. These mines, each one that hits someone, will heal you. Very, very nice indeed, and alongside of our structured entropy, we've got really good healing skills on us for just doing our damage. Next up, of course, is Persistence. After blocking an attack, your next health, magic, or stamina cost ability is 15% less. So if we do block something, then our next ability, whatever it may be, one of these, is cheaper. You must block anyway, otherwise you're going to die. Some things will kill you if you don't block them. When you cast a Dark Magic ability, you grant Minor Prophecy to you and your group, increasing your spell crit by 1320 for 20 seconds. So, when I showed you at the beginning that we had 56% crit chance, or 53 actually, with our potion on. This being applied, because it's a Dark Magic ability, gives us Minor Prophecy, which is why our crit chance has now gone up. And that's for you and your group. So you are buffing people as well. Now, Daedric Summoning. This one here we don't need. You restore 1452 Magicka when one of your Daedric Summoning pets is killed or summoned, or unsummoned even. This Atronach, if you are using it, doesn't count. So we don't need this passive. We're not using any pets. This one reduces the cost of your ultimate abilities by 15%. You definitely want to get that. Get the cost down. You can spam your ultimate much more often. This will increase your health recovery and your stam recovery by 20% for having a Daedric Summoning ability slotted. We have Bound Aegis on bar 1. We have Bound Aegis on bar 2. So we are covered for both bars for that. The stam recovery is going to help us inside mechanics so we can dodge, roll, block, and all that good stuff. And the health recovery is minimal because we are a vampire, but it will still contribute nonetheless. So you do want to get this passive. This one here increases your max health by 8% while you have a pet active. But, again, this doesn't count. So, I mean, these are pets. Either morph of that or that, they do count. Why this one doesn't, I have no idea. But, for some reason, it doesn't. So, the Atronach doesn't give you this bonus, so you don't need it. Stormcalling. This, of course, is very important. It increases your mag recovery by 10%. We have huge recovery based on our rotation, so we're not likely to run out of juice, but the recovery will help us stay up if we have to spam stuff. Increases your physical and shock damage by 5%. Now, why is this important? Most of our damage is actually shock damage. We're doing loads of it. So that will obviously contribute to a 5% overall damage output. But at the same time, I said earlier that we're using Barb's Trap occasionally, which you can do. Now, this Beast Trap, of course, this version of it, does of course do physical damage. The 5% bonus in our passives does actually contribute to this. So although it's minimal amount, it does actually help if you're using that skill. If you're not, don't worry. Now, next up, of course, is the unusual passive. This used to be very, very different, but we won't go over the old version of it. Basically, the higher the health, the more damage you do. This character in particular has massive AoE. It can nuke small stuff really quickly and keep up some high passive damage. So the normal stuff that comes in, or the ads, or the annoying bits and pieces, they're going to die quickly normally anyway. But because we have increased damage, the higher the health of the targets, our burst is huge. So basically, at 100% the health, you do 10% extra damage. 90% health, you do 9% extra damage, and it goes down and down and down and down and down. But we have certain traits on our gear that will push that back up again. So essentially, this is a reverse execute passive. The higher the health is, the more damage you do. So initially, you want to get into the fight and hit them as hard as you possibly can to get them down quickly, so then all those execute classes can start finishing them off. So you are the burst. Increases your weapon and spell damage for each sorcerer ability slotted by 2%. As you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 on our front bar. That will increase our overall spell damage on the front bar by 8%. If you have the Atronach here, that will increase it by 10% in total. But this is a passive that we do want, and so is this, so we will go over those. That will make a lot more sense as to why they're there instead of sorcerer abilities. Destruction Staff. These are very important. Pay attention to these. Your fully charged shock heavy attacks will deal 100% of the damage to nearby enemies. How is that important? Watch this. This target here, this lit up one, we're going to hit him. No buffs on. Look how many targets are being hit. AoE cap doesn't exist. Every single one of them is getting whooped. Whatever you do with your heavy will hit the surrounding targets. And that is why we are built to increase our overall heavy attack damage. As you can see, obviously that's a very important passive. If you don't have that passive, you get no splash damage. We have massive AoE, and that heavy attack contributes a stupid amount. That's why we have so much off balance. That's why we have so much lightning and concussion and all that good stuff. Now this increases your penetration, or spell penetration, versus enemy targets just for your Destro skills. So any destruction staff abilities, your light attacks or your heavy attacks will be boosted by this. This increases a chance to apply burning, concussion and chilled status effects by 100%. It's not 100% chance to do it. It's 100% on top of the base. Now, how this works is if you have a Destro staff equipped, you will have an increased chance to apply the concussion that we are trying to get off balance with. If, for argument's sake, you are a healer or a tank and you are using a lightning staff to try and proc this passive is going to be relevant to you. But once you've put this wall down, if you swap bars and you're on your sword and board or resto staff right now, you no longer have this passive. You have to be physically holding it at the time to benefit from it. So if you spend too much time on this bar trying your ass off to proc concussion for the sake of off balance and forget to go back to the front to heal, or you go to the front and try to heal and wonder why it's not working, that is why. Passives are very, very important. But for us, the bonus is, of course, we're using 2 Destros, which means we have it no matter what bar we are on. Next up, of course, this is very important. Area of effect damage is what we are built for. We have good single target, but we are built for AoE. Now, this here does not count as area of effect. This is a single target hit. But if you are using Mystic Orb, that is area of effect, so that will be boosted. This, the splash damage from it, is area of effect, that will be boosted. Your Destro ulti, your Liquid Lightning, your Soul Splitting Trap, your Boundless Storm, your Wall of Elements, and your heavy attacks, and the monster set we're currently using are all area of effect. So every single one of those abilities or active effects that happens are all area of effect and will all benefit from the Lightning Staff passive, which increases all of their damage by 8%. Your area of effect is insane. Flame Staves, of course, you do more single target damage with single target abilities. So there is an option to roll to that, but we'll get to that when we get to the gear. But above all, you want as much AoE as possible. Now this, of course, when you kill anything with a destruction staff ability specifically, so if you're using your light attack, your heavy attack, or perhaps you've got a Destro skill on your bar, maybe you're using Crush and Shock or something like that, if you're not familiar with that, by the way. First ability, Force Shock, morph it to Crush and Shock, you can interrupt stuff from range. That's a choice, but if you're using that as well, any of those, if you kill the target, you'll get 3600 Magicka back. So keep your heavy attacks up, make sure you finish them. Next up is light armor, of course. We don't need that, so ignore that one. You want to get every single one of these. We are using 5 pieces of light armor, 1 piece of heavy, and 1 piece of medium. So for each piece worn, some of these give you bonuses. This will give you a 4% bonus to the effectiveness of snares, so you are less slowed per piece worn, and also reduces the cost of sprint per piece worn as well. This will increase your mag recovery per piece and your reduction to cost for Magicka abilities per piece. This will increase your spell resistance per piece of light armor, and these two here require 5 armor pieces of light armor. Now, this will increase your spell crit rating by 10%, and this will increase your spell penetration by 4884, which is huge. PVE targets have 18,200 physical and spell resistances. You want to make sure inside your group with buffs, debuffs, and bonuses, and your own setup for your own bonuses, buffs, passives, and traits, that you can hit 18,200. If you go slightly over as an AoE build, it's not the end of the world, because surrounding targets are never debuffed as much as the main target, because even the final debuff, being it Tourist Pack Crusher, for example, reducing the physical and spell penetration resistance of the target is not area of effect, it's single target. So if you have one target with that bonus or debuff on it, every other target doesn't have it. So you can over penetrate a little bit on purpose and you'll still be just fine because you'll kill surrounding targets faster. Anyway, you want to hit 18,200 if you can, with your group buffs considered. You might have to jiggle some of your CPs and stuff depending on what group you're in for that, but this is a massive, massive bonus. You must have 5 pieces worn, so if your armor breaks, you lose passive, so make sure you keep your armor topped up. Medium armor, of course, we don't need all of these. We'll take this because it gives us a increase to our stam recovery and reduction to cost. So that counts towards our beast trap, and obviously, if we need to block and dodge roll, we get our stamina back faster. Dexterity isn't needed. Windwalker is. This one is for sneaking, so you don't really need that unless you're going for achievements and such like March of Sacrifices or maybe PvP. This one here increases your weapon damage. You don't need that because it's 5 pieces or more. And this one you can take. It increases your movement speed per piece as well. We are wearing 1, so we get dodge roll reduction and movement speed bonus as well. I did forget to mention, by the way, Boundless Storms does make you run faster for 4 seconds, so you can use it as a little speed buff if you need to. Just activate it. Next up is Heavy Armor, of course. You want these 3 passives. Not the bottom 2, they require 5 pieces, but you do want these. This will increase your physical and spell resistance by each piece worn, so it's a small amount, but it will count. This increases your health recovery, which is meh, but it does give you 108 Magicka and stand back whenever you take damage once every 4 seconds for each piece worn, so that will contribute a little bit as well. And this increases your max health by 2% for each piece worn. The 2% health bonus is actually quite substantial on top of our passive, so that's really nice. Next up is Vampire, of course. We do have this passive here to increase our mag and stam recovery by 10%. So our Magicka recovery is up, so is our stam recovery, so we can block, dodge, and all that good stuff. And of course, we can use our abilities more often. Stage 2 or higher is required for this. Now, stage 3 or higher, I'm always 4 anyway because I can't be bothered to keep swapping, and I'm safe in mechanics. But if you want to go to 3, that's fine. But stage 3 or higher, if you drop below 50% health, you will gain a mitigation bonus of up to 33% reduction to income and damage, depending on how low your health actually is at the time. So if we're going low health, you get tankier. This is very, very powerful indeed. You can, of course, get this, which will make you sneak faster if you are doing the sneaky, but you do need to be stage 4 for that. So that's why I'm generally stage 4, because I do a lot of that, but you don't have to be if you don't want to. Above all, you want to make sure you're at least stage 3, so you can get this one here and this one here. Next up, of course, is Fighter's Guild. Now, this is only relevant if you are using Beast Trap. If you are using Beast Trap and you don't have someone guarding you for minor force, you don't have any Twilight in the group for minor force, then you'll want Beast Trap, and you will need Intimidate and Presence, which reduces its cost by 15%. You will also want this. 3 points into here will give you an increased 3% extra weapon damage for each Fighter's Guild ability slotted. Now that sounds tiny, and it is. But if it was on here, you would get the 3% increase, which would make this do a little bit more damage. Above all, however, even if you don't have these, you will need this. Now, this is Banish the Wicked, and for all undead, Daedra, or werewolves that you kill, and you will get a lot of kills, you'll be finishing off pretty much everything. Every single one of those will grant you 9 ultimate. So you can use your ultimate more often. You will want this passive overall above any of these, but if you do have Beast Trap, you're going to want these too. Mage's Guild, of course, this is the important stuff. You will want this. Increases your Magicka and your mag recovery by 2% for each Mage's Guild ability slotted. That is why we have this on the front bar. This gives us a 2% max magic and recovery. Also, Structured Entropy is also from this skill line. This will give us 2% as well. So we have a 4% increase across the board. 8% here, 4% for the Mage's Guild stuff. Really, really nice indeed. Just note, by the way, if you do put a Sorcerer ability on here, you'll have a 2% increase to spell damage, but you'll have a 2% drop in Magicka amount. Sigil Order is not relevant unless you're using Channeled Acceleration, in which case if you are, you do want to make sure you get Concentrated Barrier. But that's not important for this particular video unless you change it. Undaunted, you do need these. This, for every synergy you take, you get 4% max magic, max health, and max stamina back. Stop leaving the synergies for everybody else. Bloody take them. You need them. They are beneficial no matter what, and you get resources back. Plus any champion points if you have the right passives. You get ultimate as well. Undaunted Metal is very important. For each type of armor worn, heavy, medium, or light, you get 2% increased max health, max magic, max stam. We are wearing 3 different types. 1 heavy, 1 medium, 5 light. That will give us a 6% bonus across the board. Really, really handy. We are not using any of these abilities. You can actually use Proxy there. It's really, really nuts, but we won't go into that in this video. But if you do need to reduce your Magicka on Sanctum or Phidia, by the way, on the last boss, if you get Magic Bomb, most people tell you to spam Seed Shield. which is very expensive, and it does get rid of your magic really, really quickly. However, because we're using such an expensive spammable on the front bar, you can just spam this with a light attack in between. And what you'll do is you will actually drain your magic really fast and do stupid amounts of damage. So instead of spamming Seed Shield, spam this. When you go into the fight, however, first of all, dump all your Magicka. Get rid of all of it before you even start on the run up the stairs so that you've got a head start just in case you get the bomb right away. Really, really nice. But that's a tip your raid leaders can probably tell you. We are, of course, a high elf. You can be whatever you want, but the high elf did top out really, really nicely. If you use any class ability, you restore 640 Magicka or stamina, whichever is the lowest. Our stamina is the lowest. So inside mechanics, if we dodge roll, for example, and then hold block, we've lost some stamina, and now we can't recover stamina because we are holding block. We might be in trouble. We might need some stamina. Use a class ability once every 6 seconds. You could do this. Your stamina actually goes up. It's not a massive bonus, but it does help to sustain that bar, and we have good stamina recovery as well when we're not blocking. So that can help keep us in the fight. That's the wrong button. Where's my skills? The other abilities, of course, are very, very flat. 2k max Magicka, highest flat max magic bonus in the game for class passives, race passives even. So that's very, very nice. And of course, we've got an increased spell damage bonus of 258, which is flat. We have that all the time just by having these passives. High elf's really, really nice. Return for the opposite bar, flat magic, flat spell damage. You can, of course, use other stuff. You can use Dark Elf, you can use a Breton, you can use a Khajiit, you can use whatever you want, but flat out, this one was top end for me. So the choice is yours. Now, most important passive in the game, in my opinion, you want medicinal use. Now, alchemy can be leveled very, very fast now, especially since we have the multi-crafting in with this patch. So it'll take you no time at all. There is a video in the description for how to level up alchemy really, really quickly. Now it's even quicker. Basically, just follow that video and just make sure you got enough materials and just click the button once instead of clicking it for 10 minutes. But you want this because if you do use crafted potions, which I'm using at the moment, but you don't have to, they will last 30% longer, which means your uptime will beat the cooldown. Just as an example, we are using spell damage pots at the moment, although we don't need to because we've got it covered anyway. I just want it for the crit on both bars. And this will give you 47 seconds instead of 45, so it will never, ever run out. Now, you can, of course, use tri-pots or trash pots or whatever. If you are using trash magic pots, your recovery will go down between cooldowns a little bit, but you can swap Bound Aegis out for Inner Light instead if you prefer. You'll lose 1% maximum magic overall, but you will have crit on both bars. But if you have room for the expensive potions, then by all means go for it. Failing that, of course, you can just use tripods. Tripods are really, really good, especially if you're in solo content, Maelstrom, stuff like that, to keep your stamina, health, and everything up at the same time. Choice is yours of potions, but definitely get the medicinal use passive. It's very, very nice indeed. Now, we are going to go through the gear. Who's panicking about gear changes? Anybody? Right. First of all, Undaunted Infiltrator's still in. So, for those of you that were anticipating changes and really panicking about this, you're fine. Still very easy to acquire if you're lucky. No, I mean lucky because you might not get the weapon, but the dungeon itself is very easy. This is from Arx Corinium. You don't have to do it on Vet. You can do it on normal. Just make sure you kill everything, loot all the chests, because it can drop from ads as well. Lightning Staff with Undaunted Infiltrator. This is a medium set. So we've got it on our staff and jewelry, and we've changed our traits to make sure that instead of robust on all the jewelry, we actually have 1 infused and 2 bloodthirsty. Remember I said that we have a 10% increase of damage at maximum health, and it goes down to 1% increase of damage at low health, so our execute goes down. Well, this 20% extra bonus under 25% actually pushes our damage back up again. It's really, really nice. But as you can see, we've trait changed these to make sure that the 2 pieces is the 2-handed weapon, and the other 3 pieces are the jewelry. So this is no longer for us a medium set. This is now a light set, effectively. It has 2 bonuses to max Magicka. It has a weapon crit bonus, which is absolutely useless. Just ignore it. But when you use a Magicka ability, your light attacks and heavy attacks for 10 seconds, so you can even swap bars with it, are increased. So you activate it and your hands glow. Just use a Magicka ability. That's really easy. Even this. And when you swap bars, as you'll see, it stays with you. So you only have it on the front bar. Now, as you may know, if you were listening earlier, your off-balance damage increases your heavy attack damage by 70%. That stacks with this bonus at the bottom here. Our back bar weapon is a Maelstrom Lightning Staff, if you can get it. If you haven't got it right now, don't panic. You can use a Willpower Staff or whatever you want in the meantime. But if you do have the Maelstrom Staff, this will also increase your light and heavy attacks. And they stack with this. And they stack with this. Anything inside Wall of Elements will have increased light and heavy attack damage done to it. One more thing, which is our other set. We'll go to the monster set in a moment. Infallible Ether. This has 2 crit bonuses on it. Minor Slayer, increasing all of your damage done in Trials, Dungeons, and Arenas by 5%. Has a spell damage bonus and a final 5th piece bonus, which is completely misunderstood. Enemies damaged with a fully charged heavy attack are affected with minor vulnerability for 10 seconds, increasing all of their damage taken by 8%. That is not why we use it. It's a nice bonus, but it's not why we use it. We have really high uptime on Concussion. Concussion, which I deliberately didn't mention earlier, does apply minor vulnerability, which is exactly the same as this bonus. So no, nobody has to be running Ether. No, you don't need this bonus. You already have it. But this does allow you to have 100% uptime on it for free. What we want this for is the bit just above it. Your fully charged heavy attacks deal an additional 903 damage. Your fully charged heavy attack. Watch very carefully. Let me move this guy out of the way. This pop at the end. That pop at the end, which didn't even crit. That is what it boosts. Now, that may be very low at the moment. If you put your spell damage up, it will be higher. We need to crit that. 10k. Now what happens? If we put down our Wall of Elements for our Maelstrom weapon, and we apply our Undaunted Infiltrator, off balance heavy. 24k. Big, big difference when you stack the bonuses. That also applies, the other bonuses stack while you're doing your heavy, and that one applies at the end. Now, the difference in overall damage output is when you use anything, even as far as Sororia, Mother Sorrow, any of that kind of stuff, top end, without increasing the damage output, obviously, by Major Slayer, Major Vulnerability, Minor Courage, all that kind of stuff, Major Berserk, without including those, just a straightforward dummy hit, those heavies, without Ether, without Undaunted Infiltrator, can hit for maximum during execute somewhere around sort of the 25 to 35 area. With this setup, they can actually go up as far as almost 50 and even higher. You're looking in your combat metrics for Shock Pulse. This here is what you're looking for. It's very, very high, and it's very, very close to the actual heavy attack output. As you saw, I did a 21k hit then. That's without debuffs and bonuses and buffs. It didn't have Major Breach, Minor Breach, or anything. Flat out, during the fight, this can hit around 33, 35 for heavy attacks, and it executes, it can go way over 40. Just consider, of course, those heavies spread, including the pop at the end. So the higher the pop at the end, the higher the ticks of damage, the more splash damage you do to everything. So there's a 10k drop in DPS if you don't have that for the heavy attacks alone. It's very, very strong. Now, monster set wise, we are using Groftar for the area of effect damage, because we have a circle of fire, which I'm sure you've seen already, which lasts for 5 seconds and is down for 5 seconds. Up for 5, down for 5, up for 5, down for 5, as long as you do damage. It has a 10% chance to proc, and it does really, really high close range single area of effect damage, which is boosted by our lightning staff. However, if you don't want to use that, you can, of course, use Zan. You will lose area of effect damage to close by targets, but your single target will be very, very close, if not slightly higher. And this does have a crit bonus on it as well. With the crit bonus, of course, that does put us slightly higher, which means instead of 59.6, let's pop a potion to make sure we've got a crit on. You're actually 63.4. So that's also a choice for you, depending on whether you want to go full single target or not. Now, all of the traits, which I haven't gone over, precise on the front bar with a weapon and spell damage glyph, infused on the back bar with a shock glyph. Everything divines, and infused and bloodthirsty twice on the jewelry. The reason we've got everything divines now is because I have explained that we can kind of take advantage of minor force, and our champion points have plugged some of our crit damage bonuses to make us have 90% without minor force, and with our Mundustone, of course, giving us a 19% bonus. If we do have minor force, we hit 100 on the nose. So that's the reason for that. But alterations. If you are in a situation where you have enough off-balance uptime, it's already covered. You don't need to contribute any more to it because everyone else is already doing it. You can swap this out for a flame staff instead. The reason you see the shock glyph higher than the flame glyph is because we have a 5% increase in our passives. But again, if Engulfing Flames is active, this will do more. So it's entirely up to you. But for applying off balance, Lightning Staff with a Shock Glyph because the chance is up. If it's already covered, use a Flame Staff and you will get more damage out of it. It's entirely up to you. I would highly encourage people to go full Lightning because you will get a lot more passives out of it. And it's really, really nice for your group. But again, if it's already covered, choice is yours. Now, before everybody panics, there are choices, of course. You can go with Sororia and Scathing Mage if you prefer. This is the difference, however. You will increase your overall spell damage. You will make your magic abilities do more damage, but your lights and heavies will go down. So the balance is so close, you'll probably gain about 1 to 2k extra DPS overall, based on testing that's already been done. But your area of effect will go down a lot. So that's a choice if you want to risk that and get a couple of extra DPS out on single target and drop your massive AoE. Sure, be my guest, but it's honestly not worth it. Also, if you are new to the game, you are scared to go into trials, don't worry, you can go into normal trials and get this stuff. There's no perfected versions of it or anything like that. You can pick it up in a blue version and just upgrade it. Normal trials are very, very fast. They happen all the time. Keep your eyes peeled and join them. Don't be scared. But if you don't have Aether, you can put on Turok's Pact. Your glyphs will fire faster. They will do more damage and they'll be stronger. But you will have to make sure you've got plenty of soul gems. Now, I'm going to quickly go into the champion points. Now, these are kind of set for all content, so they're good across the board for pretty much everything you want to go into. But if you are going a little bit more serious, you're going into some of the harder stuff, you might want to tweak these a little bit depending on what you're up against, so you're welcome to do that if you want. But I'm going to go over them as they are anyway. 72 points into Ironclad, so we've got 23% reduction to direct damage. We're going to take a lot of that, make sure we get that boost there. 64 and 64 into Hardy and Elemental Defender, meaning no matter what type of damage it is, we have a reduction by 13%. Also a 19% bonus reduction to damage over time, which is also very helpful as well. Now, we've got 19 points into Quick Recovery. This does give us a couple of different things. This will give us a 5% bonus to heal and receive, meaning our heals that we do and that other people do to us as well. And of course, it opens up the Field Physician passive for 10 points in this particular tree, so that when you do resurrect people, you will of course reduce income and damage on you by 15%. So you've got that moment where you take less damage while trying to get that last minute, oh my god, quickly res them before we all die. So this does help quite a bit. The green tree, of course, 44 points into Warlord to reduce the cost of Break Free. 75 points into Tenacity to give us a 14% increase to our heavy attack returns. And 75 points into Arcanist to give us a 14% increase to our mag recovery. 72 points into Tumbling to give us a 23% reduction to dodge roll. And then the final 4 points aren't really going anywhere. We can't even get the final 2% bonus out of this. So we actually get just 1% out of this. But 1% block cost is better than no percent of nothing. We do have the treasure passive, where we actually get higher quality items from treasure chests, which is really handy. So 75 points in this tree will give you that. 61 points into Elfborn, increasing our overall critical damage by 21%. 9 points into Spell Erosion. We are using a precise weapon, so this does help us hit cap very, very easily if we have all buffs and bonuses applied. If you want to put more in here so you've got an increased AoE damage, of course you can do that, but be very careful because you will over-penetrate on single target and you'll lose flat as well. So this is a very nice spot for this to be in. But depending on the group you're in, depending on the content you're in, you may want to alter this. Maybe you haven't got all the buffs and bonuses you need and you have to plug it, or maybe you've got more than enough and you're just fine as you are. It's up to you. But this is a really good spot. 64 points into Elemental Expert, increasing all of the damage we do basically by 13%. This increases our light and heavy attack damage by a whopping 26%, and 5 points into Master at Arms increases our direct damage by 2% as well. Our only direct damage that we're actually using are our light attacks and our mines, so there's not much. You can switch this out a little bit and put some more into here if you want, but it actually ends up balancing out and not really doing a massive amount of benefit for us. If you increase your single target damage from those particular abilities, you lose in your heavy attack, which loses the splash, which loses your AoE. So this is a really, really good setup for this so far. 81 points into Thermotouch to give us a massive 24% bonus to all of our damage over time, which we are built for. We've got tons of it. And of course, we've opened up the Exploiter passive, which means while targets are off balance, we gain 10% extra damage to everything we're doing, regardless of the 70% increase to the heavy attack we get for it being off balance in the first place. Anyway, now I'm going to show you the rotation. This is really, really simple. Keep your buff up at all times. Very nice. We'll show you with a Beast Trap just so I can put it on the ground. But you can use Soul Trap or Beast Trap. It's entirely up to you, depending on the situation, obviously. Make sure your trap is down. Make sure your buff is up. Start your front bar with a light attack and mines, heavy attack. Mines, heavy attack, entropy, swap. Now, hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Back bar, very simple. Liquid Lightning. Light attack, Boundless Storms. Light attack, Wall of Elements, swap bars. Every second rotation, change that. 2, Liquid Lightning, Light Attack Beast Trap, Light Attack Wall of Elements, swap. So 1 rotation is Boundless, 1 rotation is Beast Trap. 1 rotation is Boundless, 1 rotation is Beast Trap. If you are using Soul Trap, that's a little different. Every second rotation you use Boundless, but every rotation you use a Soul Trap. So I'm going to show you that on the skeleton to show you how it looks. Very simple. Ignore the fire. Liquid Lightning, Light Trap, Light Boundless, Light Wall, swap. Light Mines, Heavy Attack. Mines, Heavy Attack. Entropy swap. Start again. Liquid Lightning, Light Trap, Light Wall, swap. Light Mines, Heavy Mines, Heavy Entropy, swap. And my Boundless is going to run out, so what do? Liquid Lightning, Light Trap again every time. Light Boundless this time. Light Wall, swap. Ultimates are always fired before the Wall of Elements. I don't care what you're doing on this bar, what order you do it in. It should be in the right order, but even if you get it wrong, ulti first, Wall of Elements second. Because you want to get your Wall of Elements down as you swap bars. It's always done last. Also, make sure before a fight, your arms are always glowing. And during execute, 20% and under, don't use your mines anymore. And you should be doing this 4 times. Then entropy and swap. Do your back bar stuff, come back, do it again. Unless you're low on resources, in which case instead of light and 4 times, instead of that, you do this twice. 1, 2. Then entropy and swap. And carry on. Depending on how high your resources are at the time. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but I'm now going to show you a demonstration on the target dummy. Now this can crack anywhere between 69 and 73 single target, which isn't too bad. It's not the end of the world, and it's also not God mode. But you have to consider that this is built for massive area of effect and single target combined. So we have deliberately dropped some single target damage output to cater for that missing AoE that other people don't necessarily have, and to push as much off-balance bonus as possible and vulnerability to the rest of the group. So we're buffing, and we're killing an AoE, and we're killing a single target, and we're sustaining, and we're surviving. It's an overall build for all content, I might add. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to show you this real quick. So hopefully that helped, hopefully that wasn't too boring, hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular build, hopefully also you understand that this is a balanced setup and deliberately not designed to be a glass cannon. It's not meant to hit 90 to 100k DPS, however if you do end up standing next to a Nightblade or a Warden or something that has a Master Architect or War Machine or something like that, and they're applying Major Slayer to you all the time, and you have a couple of Necros applying Major Vulnerability all the time, and perhaps you have Minor Courage and Major Berserk perhaps from another Sorcerer, you can crack 100k easy in single target, and that also annihilates AoE. So it's all situations depending. Your group depends on how good your overall performance is, but you can hold your own no matter what. Anyway, first of all, thank you all very, very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. If you are not subscribing already, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside of YouTube, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website XynodeGaming.com. Don't forget, if you're struggling with dungeons or anything like that at all, there are many, in fact 36 dungeon guides on my website right now. There's going to be another 2 because there's 2 with this DLC. There's 36 dungeon guides on there explaining all of the mechanics for all of the content and showing you the hard modes as well with a balanced setup, and there's also an add-on for you guys on PC. So hopefully that will help. Once again, thank you all very, very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.